welcome back to the Titans of Food Service podcast. Nick Portillo here. This is episode 106. I appreciate everyone following along and listening over the last. I can't believe I started this podcast back in 2023. Here we are in 2025. Was it 2023? Yeah, I think it was. Anyway, you can see here today, I don't have a guest. It's just me talking, and I want to share some updates. So the word you're going to hear a lot in this episode is scaling. And when I started this podcast, I know I've talked about it on many episodes before. When I got into the food service industry, I remember when I first started, my dad was, I was actually trying to get appointments with people by texting them or emailing them. And he's like, Nick, you got to pick up the phone and like call people. You have to go see people in person. Like that's how this industry works. And it was kind of an eye opener. He's like, you need to learn how to talk to adults. Because I was, coming out of school, it was, hi, Mr. Smith, or hi, Mrs. Smith. And now it was addressing people by their first names and being comfortable with that. So it's just a whole different world and whole different universe. So he said at the same time, like when you go out there and learn and, press palms, right? You shake people's hands and learn from them. And he goes, there's no book on how to be successful in food service. You just have to go out there and do it. And it kind of dawned on me. And he was actually a big help in starting this podcast when we started a few years ago. And this was my quote unquote, the book that people can come to this podcast and gain information. So I would welcome on guests, people that worked in distribution, people who worked in manufacturing, the brokers, people who own restaurant chains and just who did menu trends. I love those people. They were so fun to talk to. Now I've gotten to the point in the podcast where I want to continue to give content, but finding people, inviting them onto the podcast, it's just no longer life-giving. Getting people to come on and take the time to do it. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of time into doing that. And it was holding me back from making more content and providing more value to you as the listener. And so I said, you know what? I need to just stop doing that. I will interview people on here from time to time, but I want to continue just giving valuable information on the food service industry from the perspective of a food service broker. I have access to many different distributors, tons of operators, many different manufacturers, and I can see how they do business. And it's a unique and perspective that I want to share, through the eyes of me as the broker. So I want to talk a little bit about, scaling. When we first started our business, scaling was hard. It's like for the manufacturers that I represent, scaling their business can be difficult. It takes time. And that's where, in many instances, a broker comes in to help with that growth, to say to a manufacturer, hey, you're really good at making products. Let's keep you focused on making products, coming out with new innovation, and allow us to go out there and build the business. That's what scaling is all about. In a service industry, such as food service, or in a service business, such as the broker business, it's hard to scale. If you take the example of a tech company, right? Amazon can create a platform, and at some point, their expenses no longer go up, but they can just increase the number of users that come onto that platform. Another example is a cable company. A cable company, when you sign up, you pay, let's say, $100 a month. These are California numbers. I don't know what, it could be more than that too, a lot more than that. But let's say $100 a month for cable. Well, in the shortest way to say this, they kind of just flip on the light switch, right? And then you have cable directly to your home. They might have sent you a little cable box that you can set up, or they send out a technician to install it for you. But their expenses by you coming on as a customer are not increasing, other than giving you a new box. All they're really doing is flipping on the switch, so it's easy to scale. So they've got the infrastructure built, and what they're trying to do is just add more customers, scale. In a service industry, it's not like that. When we bring on a new manufacturer partner of ours, we look at it and say, hey, we've got a team here that can work and build that business. But in some circumstances, we may say we need to bring on additional team members to help service that client. And because of that, it makes scaling really hard. When you look at your admin or your ops or your finance or your sales, like you can offload some of that work. You can find your own agencies that can help you with those types of things. You can bring in people like direct hires onto your payroll. You can work with you can offshore or do other things to help with the scale, but it's really hard to do that. And so there's some differences between different types of businesses. Service industry, or service businesses, it's a really fun type of business type to be a part of. It's a lot of fun. Every day is uniquely different, but scaling is hard. And that's kind of what I found here with this podcast as well is, hey, I'm constantly creating more content, but I have to be able to get it to a point where I'm not spending numerous amounts of hours just trying to get people to come on the podcast so I can continue to deliver man, talking is hard. Jeez. I could deliver content to you on a weekly basis because that's what I love to do. And sometimes when you move too fast and you scale too fast, and I'm trying to get out a podcast episode every week, you have to make sure you have the right systems in place. So I have a team. They're wonderful in helping me edit this episode, get it out there, and things like that. So that one piece of finding new people to come to the podcast, because I take great pride in the people that I invite, and I'm meticulous and I'm particular of the people that I'm trying to get on here, because I'm trying to have them share stories, people that are top of the industry or on their way to the top that have cool backstories that I'm trying to get to share with you. And I still want to invite those people on, and I still will, but it will be more me sharing, again, my viewpoints. You get it. Sharing my viewpoints to the eyes of the broker. Because food service, it's really unique. It's a fun industry, especially coming out of COVID. Food service has changed. If you think about pre-COVID, you had Skype, which we kind of used as a society a little bit, but really, was it that much? Not really. I honestly struggled figuring out Skype and just didn't use it that much. I know we had FaceTime. I've never been much of a FaceTime guy on my phone. But then COVID hits, and now you've got Google Meet. I think is it Google Meet? I don't use that one, but I know Google has one. Microsoft Teams. You've got Zoom, and you've got others. I use here for my podcast. I use Squadcast, and that's how I broadcast this podcast. So, food service sales, it's evolving. You see more things going online, and as we've come out of COVID, have really tried to reinvent my business, reinvent this podcast. And when we came out of COVID, we wanted to redefine who our core customer was. We wanted to redefine and restructure our go-to-market strategy, the value prop that we bring to our clients, to our operator and distributor customers. So focusing on those types of things, it took time, but COVID gave us that pause to think about what's the next step forward. And so here I am, I'm in that pause with this podcast of what's the next step forward to deliver more and better content to you. In food service, you also too, if you look at kind of the business as a whole, you have that old school mentality, right? That, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to knock on doors. It's about relationships. I love that part of the business. But there's so much in new school too. There's so much technology and leveraging that and helping you build your business. And so going through COVID, and you can see I'm kind of mixing in Portillo Sales and Marketing, this podcast. There's some parallels here. But reinventing who we were as a business has really helped us in the last 4 or 5 years as we've come up and out of the pandemic, which was a very challenging time for us. I remember pre-pandemic, I was chasing what I would call easy money. My wife and I, we started a Airbnb type business. I remember we had a unit in Costa Mesa, and it was a 1-bedroom apartment. It was fantastic. I mean, we had families that would come in that would want to go to Disneyland. We had traveling nurses. We had business professionals coming in, or we had just people looking for a fun time in Orange County coming to stay in this apartment. We'd clean it. We'd get it set up on Airbnb, on VRBO, which shout out to them. I know they've rebranded to Verbo. So we had the unit on there and made good money too. Like we were making 50% profit margins. Like, whoa, COVID hit. Shut all that down. But in that time, I also, and I know I've talked about this on LinkedIn, I've lost 4 of my biggest clients in that time because I just wasn't focused. So getting more focused, defining what is important to me, what is important to the business, that's where I'm at here with this podcast. I'm redefining what's important to me. If something isn't life-giving, like trying to go out and find, constantly reaching out, kind of this, it was kind of I find someone, send them an email, and I had to get quite a few people in my database to get them to say yes. I was like, hey, I'm gonna make it easy. Same thing I did with my business. Let's refocus. Let's rediscover. Let's redefine who we are, who we want to be, where we're going. We're gonna go do it bigger, better, and faster. And we're gonna take the learnings that we have, which I have a lot of learnings in this podcast starting a few years ago. This is episode 106. I had 5 years of professional experience running a brokerage when COVID hit. And so taking those learnings and this is what's going to propel us to the next step. So here I am. I appreciate everyone who's followed along through all of these episodes. I appreciate all of the incredible people that have joined me as guests on this podcast. I look forward to having more guests, but I also need to deliver more content. I want to deliver it weekly. That's important to me, and I have fun doing it. I thank you for listening, and get ready. More is coming. I appreciate you.